You are listening to the Salem First Hunting and Fishing Podcast.
Our mission is to connect with and actively engage Western Oregon outdoorsmen.
I want to encourage people to have a positive life change from the outdoors.
Yeah.
It's not just killing something.
One question we ask on this show is, what's your true motivation behind your life in the outdoors? What's going on deep down inside of you when you're engaging with hunting and fishing?
I believe that God gave us the ability to do this. That's one way to connect with God.
This is where the spiritual piece really comes in. We are a part. We have a profound impact on our resources.
I don't know how to answer that other than to say it's just all about Jesus.
Listen to this podcast, join our Facebook group at Salem First Hunting and Fishing Club, or participate in any of our club fishing trips, shooting events, or hunting trips.
Welcome to the Salem First Hunting... we're not that anymore. Whoops, we changed names. Welcome to the Oregon First Hunting and Fishing Podcast. We're so glad that you tuned in, that you're listening. We made this show specifically for people who live in Oregon, Western Washington, those of us in the far west, Pacific Northwest, that we feel like happen to get overlooked a lot in the hunting content industry because there's lots of big elk and big bucks over in Idaho and Colorado and Wyoming. But, you know, we have some pretty cool stuff here. We have a lot of people who live here that love this lifestyle. So if you chase black-tailed deer, Roosevelt elk, you fish for spring Chinook, Rio turkeys, then you're our people. You're listening to the right show, and we're glad that you tuned in. We just have a few announcements before we get into the show. We always want to point people to join our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is still Salem First Hunting and Fishing because we're based in Salem. We do events, and those are all in the Salem area. We also have a Facebook page now, though, Oregon First Hunting and Fishing. So if you'd like to like that, see the announcements of when our shows come out and what's going on there. We also have an Instagram account now that Eric is managing.
Yep.
Doing the best he can with what he has. He'll be pro soon. You just wait.
Yeah,
It'll
hopefully.
blow up. We're never going to pay for ads though, because that's just too far. That's trying too hard, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's not really my
Not a big ad
deal.
guy.
But in this show, we're going to talk about Eric and I's week in the outdoors. We're going to talk about the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife big game statistics, and we have an interview with guest Ryan Sparks.
Very excited for it.
Yep.
We've been looking forward for quite a while, actually. I've been bugging you about this for, I don't know, probably a good 6 months. So
Yeah.
thanks for having us
No,
today.
of course. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
We're coming at you from Ryan's dining room table set up, brought the whole studio out here to Beaverton, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you guys for coming up and joining.
Yeah, sweet.
We want to talk about shop talk a little bit.
Yeah, another thing to look forward to, put on your calendar the last Monday of every month, or I'm sorry, the fourth Monday of every month.
Yep.
Shop Talk, we meet Ankeny Hill. It's near Jefferson, Oregon, and it's just a bunch of guys coming together who like to hunt and fish. We have a meal together. Usually there's breakout groups with pros or speakers who come and talk about hunting and fishing and the life in the outdoors, but it's really just an opportunity to connect with other outdoorsmen from our area. So we want to invite you to that. If you'd like to learn more, reach out to us or go ahead and join our Facebook page and throw a post up there, and we'd be happy to help direct you and get you involved there.
So today, our special guest, Ryan Sparks.
Very special. Do you feel special?
I do that sometimes.
So Ryan hails from Haines, Alaska, came down here to Oregon State University. He fished with the Oregon State Bass Club. He's a tournament fisher. He's also a regional sales rep for Dawn Coffee. So if you guys don't know anything about Dawn Coffee, go check out dawncoffee.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ryan's a busy man. So once again, thanks for doing this. And we'll get into some icebreaker questions.
I love it. Let's get it started.
Cool. Hunting or fishing?
I'd definitely probably go, I'd say fishing. I really enjoy them both, but, you know, most of my time takes me to the fishing side of it.
Sure. Bait casting or spinning rod?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd like to say the more manly casting, but you know what? I seem to have a spinning rod in my hands, I think, more than casting. If you said for fun.
Really?
Maybe the casting.
Because I'm looking at this collection of, what have you got? Like a dozen bait casters leaning up against the wall right there.
Yep.
Is it because all your spinning reels are in
probably
your boat?
in the boat. Yeah. That's probably why. It's that time of year.
We affectionately named Jay the king of finesse because he's always, catching some some giants on a spinning rod, and that's one thing he talked about was you got to have a spinning rod in your arsenal.
Yeah, so mine is the drop shot. That's usually what.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
That's kind of.
Is that a little controversial?
What I've got into? What do you mean by
As
controversial
far
on
as
that?
like, well, for a lot of people, the drop shot is kind of the last thing you pull out of the box when nothing else is working.
Yeah, and honestly, it's usually one of my first rods on deck. So
Okay.
I have enough confidence in that for either largemouth or smallmouth that's always on my deck. I mean, even if I'm fun fishing, it's usually the one that I can always turn to.
Sweet.
Cool.
Well, maybe someday you'll be hailed the king of drop shot.
Yeah, maybe.
River or lake fishing?
Ooh, that one's tough. I'd have to say the river just because usually the Columbian, the smallmouth is kind of what I gravitate to. It's kind of close to here and by far one of the best fisheries, I think, in the state and actually nationwide. So I'd probably say river, even though I love fishing lakes. So that's another tough one.
Do you launch in the Columbia or do you launch down here in the Willamette and boat up?
No. So usually like out of Hood River, Cascade Locks,
Okay,
that's like the section that's closest to me and what I like to fish the most. But
yeah, wow.
as we all know, it blows up there a
Buoy
lot.
10.
So yeah, I get stuck on the Willamette quite a bit.
Yeah. Bass or salmon fishing?
You know, I grew up salmon fishing. Still love it. But I'd say my main passion has to be bass fishing. If you gave me a choice to go out and do something today, I'd probably pick bass fishing.
Well, and judging by your trophy wall, I'd say bass fishing is kind of your thing. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Nope, thank you.
Mono or fluoro?
Definitely a fluoro guy. Mono has its techniques and definitely its times for either some bigger swim baits, top water, but I would be using fluoro most of the time, I would say.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too.
But I am a braid to fluoro guy, so
yes.
I do.
Oh,
use,
okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Definitely a braid. Not on my casting stuff as much. I know a lot of people like that, but all my spinning rods definitely braid to fluoro.
Yeah, I'm thinking about switching to braid. Like even I bought some that, I thought I was buying fluoro, but I think it was some sort of hybrid, so it still has the memory, which is the whole reason why you don't get mono.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of disappointing, but I think I might switch to braid.
I mean, everything about braid's nice. It cuts through the water better. It doesn't have stretch to it. Makes everything a lot more sensitive. You can get away throwing a lot lighter diameters, so longer casting distances, longer shelf life. There's a lot of pros to throwing braid.
Yeah. Does it resist abrasion better, like as far as rubbing on rocks?
Oh, yeah.
So it's time for Eric and I to share some hunting and fishing stories from our week in the outdoors. I really don't want to go first, Eric, so I'm going to let you go first.
So yeah, I've been fishing a little bit. Last week, of course, Ryan, you participated with us over at Hagg Lake for Cast for Kids. If you guys haven't heard about the Cast for Kids Foundation, check it out, Google it, come out, sign up, help us in any way we can. We're always looking for volunteers.
Do you have any good stories from that day?
Yeah. So I actually got to fish with a gentleman who was blind, and man, that guy, he was so in tune to what was going on the rod. He literally just, kind of grip it in his finger and
like grip the line.
Yeah, between his index finger and his thumb, and he'd just sit there and feel it, all the minute little details going on. And he could sit there and tell us how much water we were in.
That's crazy.
Incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like,
and he said he hadn't really fished that much.
Had never fished before.
And he could still, I think he was fleecing you, man. I think he's
I had to do the whole, can you see this? No. Yeah, he was a good kid.
Here, catch.
No, but it was funny. We were watching, the graph and stuff. And I was asking the guy whose boat I was on, Ed Chin. I said, what are we, 25 feet of water? And Eric, the blind kid, he piped up and he said, I think it's about 23 feet. And I look over at Ed, and Ed's like giving me the holy crap.
He's right. Yeah.
It's 23 feet.
Yeah.
Wow.
23 feet. So
dang, that's wild.
That kid was wild, but had a great time. We had a lot of people come out. I think we had nearly 40 boats.
Yeah, it was up there. I think we had about 40 kids and 20 boats or so.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, right around there. I know we had more boats show up than we thought. It was probably more around close to 30, but
It
it was
a
a
problem
great
to have.
turnout. Oh, yeah, very good.
As
Yeah.
long as there's not more boats than kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we had this poor guy drive down. I think he was from the Portland area. Had a big old Hughes craft boat, pulls in, comes up to me, and he goes, dude, I forgot my keys.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh crap. So I jumped up into his boat, and I was trying every single key on my keychain to see if it would jiggle the lock enough. But that would have been a fun boat to be on, just because you could get several people on it. But yeah, it was an amazing day. The weather was beautiful. I think I was the last boat coming in off the water for
and
the
you
day.
slayed the bluegill.
We did. Yeah, we slayed.
Oh yeah, it's usually a bluegill fest.
I don't remember hearing a whole lot about any bass being caught.
No, not usually. I mean, a lot of that stuff you're just trying to catch the kids' fish. So a lot of it, you're throwing like a drop shot with the worm, trying to get it down.
Yep.
Close to the bottom, so it's like bluegill, crappie, perch. I know we caught a couple little tiny bass, but the kids just love it. And they honestly like the boat ride more than anything. So
being out on the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a great opportunity.
And those spider blocks out there, they're loaded with bluegill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's why the bass get decent out there.
Oh yeah, and that's why they put them in that lake too. So when they draw it down like that, they got some structure for everything to go to.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I guess that I have to go now. I had a rough go of it this time around. So this is my first year holding a bow in the field. Like I've called for one of my friends, Jericho, who archery hunts for a few years, and he got me some calls and told me what to do. So that it's been kind of a learning experience the last few years, but he convinced me this year, and it didn't take much convincing, to go ahead and get a bow and try it out. So I was hunting by myself, tried to do a mountain bike hunt, got to my original gate I was going to park at, but there was a pickup there, so I went to plan B. Worked out good for me because I walk up the hill and I hear a stick break. So I cow call and I hear a bunch of brush breaking. So yeah, there's a bull coming. And he was out on the other side of this really small clear cut. And so I was up a steep hill that looks down into the clear cut. I was in a whole bunch of reprod, sort of that older reprod that's a bunch of dead sticks right at your head level. So no way to quietly get through, but that was fine because he thought I was a cow. I cow called a couple times and broke sticks right up to the edge of the cut. And by then he was looking right where I was, and there was actually two raghorn satellite bulls. I mean, long story short, the story didn't end well. He came in frontal. He cut the distance, 100 yards. He just came right to me, and he hit 20. And he paused. He would have kept coming in, learning lesson for me. I should have waited. But I've been hearing a lot of talk about taking frontal shots lately. It's kind of a popular topic of conversation. I want to go out and say, from my experience as a beginner, you probably shouldn't take a frontal shot at your first elk. So took the shot, hit high. Once again, practice those steep downhill, uphill shots, because a lot of us who are getting into archery practice flat shots over and over. I was shooting my bow every single day leading up to season, but on flat land. So side to side, I hit dead center, but I was high, never practiced a downhill shot, like I said. And arrow hit, bull went out. I saw where it hit. At that point, he was about 50 yards broadside. I decided to, even though I told myself a maximum range would be 40, I already had an arrow in him. I wanted to try to get another one. Clean miss right under his belly. And then he never busted. In fact, his buddy that was with him, I kept calling him his little brother. It was a spike by 4. It was kind of weird, combo there. But he came into the trees with me and got within about 10 feet. And I was just trying not to move. I didn't want to bust him, especially since it wasn't a great shot, And so I was just holding perfectly still. And then that bull got a whiff of me. He kind of trotted down to his buddy in the clear cut, but he didn't like bust. And then they both calmly walked up into the reprod on the other side of the cut. That started, I did the math, 10 hours that day of tracking and 8 hours the next day of tracking. A blood trail that, wasn't very strong and dried up pretty quick. We waited I called my buddy who I've archery hunted with, waited 3 hours to go in, went in, bumped him, wasn't dead. Long story short, he got onto a road and just walked, and I was able to track him. The blood had stopped when he hit the road, but I was able to track him because it's all dry and dusty for a whole 3/4 of a mile. So it was 1 mile from the shot, and then I lost tracks and gridded, did all the stuff you're supposed to do.
Never found him. Talked to other people, and the common opinion is that bull is still alive. You don't know though, and so that's my my first arrow flung at a bull, and I'm rest of my season. I'm not going to go looking for a new bull. You know, the rest of my season is going to be spent just gritting, looking everywhere, making sure, you know, looking for birds, seeing if he did die out there, and there's coyotes and birds getting on him, you know. But yeah, it was a hard weekend where every moment that I'm, you know, just kind of sitting around thinking, my mind just goes back to that image in my head of the arrow sticking out of the bull in a bad spot. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Can't believe it. But, you know, a couple hard lessons learned. And
yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys don't even get, you know, that close or even get a shot on a bull their first year. So that's just pretty amazing, basically, to have killed a bull your first time.
It's hard because, you know, on one side of things, I am thankful and excited that I got the opportunity and that I was able to call 2 bulls in at once. But on the other hand, I'm also like devastated that I blew it.
Yeah, and that's hunting though. I mean,
yeah,
seriously,
that's what it is.
And that's the other thing too. If I was a different person, I totally could have smoked that other bull that was within 10 feet of me, broadside, looking for a cow. He had no idea I was there. I could have easily killed that bull and forgotten about the bull that I stuck, but I just really, you know, don't feel right about that. Even now,
and that's good on you for realizing that too, especially your first year doing it.
Yeah, I mean, looking to the rest of my season, like I said, I'm just going to be in that same spot where I think the bull might have gone. I mean, you know, they're looking for cows. He could be halfway across the county.
Sure.
I don't know, but I have this pipe dream in my mind that maybe I'll see him
And
again.
who knows? I mean,
Yeah. And if he did die, horrible tragedy, wasted meat, but at least I'd have the closure of, you know, finding the bull that I injured. That was my bull
They're a
this
tough,
season.
resilient creature. I mean,
yeah,
they are definitely a tough animal.
But that was my week in the outdoors.
No, yeah, that's a big week, man. Like,
yeah, that was all compressed into 3 days of, you know, elk hunting and
2 days of searching.
2 days of searching. Yeah,
those are some long hours.
Yeah, I gave it a hard effort, so I feel good about, you know, working so hard trying to find him.
No, that's what you should do, honestly. So that's good on you for doing that.
Yeah. It's a hard reality of archery hunting, I guess, you know. It's just you don't ever expect it to be your first one you ever call in is the one you lose. Yeah. Pretty disheartening, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Thankful for the opportunity. Bummed out that I blew it. I mean, that was a sad story, but we'll get into some happier news here on the show. This isn't just going to be me crying about the elk that I wounded and lost. We are, for our local news story today, we're going to talk about the big game statistics for Oregon. And when I share these are for 2022, and these are based off of the mandatory reporting that we all do when we, you know, even whether you kill an animal or not, you have to report on your tag at the end of the season, and otherwise you get charged a fine. We've got some pretty interesting numbers, and I got to say, we have a lot of hunters in Oregon, man. Like, we don't have the biggest population of people, but we have a lot of people that spend time in the woods looking for something to kill. Not a lot of them are successful, but there are a lot of them out there.
Oh, yeah, and it's gaining more and more popularity.
Yeah, especially the archery game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for example, I'm a new archery. There's a lot of new archery hunters.
There's a ton of new archery hunters.
Yep, I think everyone's getting tired of hanging out with 90,000. I said that correctly. 97,000 rifle deer hunters in 2022 for the whole state. So I'll go ahead and get started. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to say what tag it is, or what. It's not just a tag. It's animal.
The general.
Yep. And it's not just the general tag. It's looking at the draw tags, the whole statistics for the total amount of hunters versus animals killed.
Yeah, you're really putting us on the spot. I don't even know.
And if you win, I will give you $10.
Wow.
I can't give it to you today.
All right.
But I will give you $10 if you get this right on. Man, I shouldn't have said that. I don't want to give anyone $10. Eric, I'm not going to give you $10. All right. So, 2022 archery deer. Once again, this is for all the draw tags, the general tag, the whole state of Oregon. There were 16,742 archery deer hunters. What percentage do you think took deer?
I'm going to probably be way off, but I'm going to say like 12%.
Okay. All right.
I'll say half that, 6.
So you guys are both have pretty dismal outlook for the archery game in Oregon. It was actually 20%.
Wow. Okay.
And that's what I noticed. Archery, it must be because of the time of year and the technology we have nowadays. There's a lot of successful archery hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they get some of the good seasons too, like
Yeah.
prime rut stuff, and
Exactly. And not to mention the types of people who go out and archery hunt are usually a little bit more committed than your average rifle hunter. There's a lot of committed rifle hunters. I've been one for a long time, but there's also a lot of rifle hunters that never get out of the truck. Yeah.
Correct.
So for archery deer, like I said, over 16,000 hunters, they killed 3,133 bucks. And here's the thing that was really interesting to me. What it breaks it down by class, like Forky, 3-point, 4+ point. The biggest
percentage in there.
The biggest
class,
was 4+ point bucks.
Wow.
Yeah, 1,100 of those bucks were 4-point or bigger.
Wow.
For the archery, which is really cool. But once again, we're looking at mule deer, we're looking at blacktail, we're looking at draw tags. A lot of people are going to hold out for those, but there's obviously a lot more general hunters than those draw tags, which is cool. So the next one, archery elk. I'll give you the number of hunters. There was 24,169 archery elk hunters. What do you think percentage?
I'll say 20% on that.
Okay, all right.
And I'll actually go a little higher than that. I'd say 26%.
Oh, you guys went the wrong direction.
Really?
14%.
Really?
14% of tags filled.
Wow.
For archery, which I was surprised by that too. And I don't know if you can use my experience as the litmus test for what archery elk hunting is like, but I've encountered 3 bulls this season.
Yeah. Well, I was just figuring during the
feel
rut, calling them in.
Yeah, exactly. They're talking.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's up with that low number. But for archery elk, 3,429 elk were killed. And once again, the biggest group class of bulls that were killed were 6+ point. So branched bulls. And there was 1,129. So just about the same amount of 4+ bucks taken as 6+ bulls. Pretty cool there. All right, black bear. What do we think? There was though this is insane. I did not expect this many black bear hunters. 28,879 black bear hunters. What percentage of them filled their tags?
Yeah, that's a tricky one because I mean a lot of that too is sportsman's pack. So you get that with your sportsman's pack.
You know what? I didn't consider that. There's probably a bunch of tag holders that never even hunted.
I guarantee you.
Wow.
I got one and I never use it. So
you're smart. That's why we have you on the podcast, man. Let's hear it. What percentage?
This is a tough one because bear hunters are usually very dedicated too.
Yeah.
The ones
I know
who
a lot
do
of spring bear guys that are out there and they're very successful.
Yep.
I'm going to say 10%.
All right.
I'm going to go a little lower. I'll say 7.
Oh, you guys were both pretty dang close. 9%.
Wow.
You were right on it, Ryan. That was close. I just wanted to
bet out of hunters that actually do it, though, I bet it's close to 50 or more.
Yeah, it has to. Well, especially, here's the thing that I'll point out too. Southern Oregon is a totally different game for bear hunting than where we live. I drew the Northwest area tag and I in my head I'm thinking, oh, spring bear, there's gonna be bears everywhere because you see all these YouTube videos. Yeah. And I didn't see a bear all season.
No, you're lucky to see one sometimes up here. Where down there you can go see 10 bears a day sometimes.
Yeah. So the Trask unit, which is the unit I hunted the most, only had a 6% success.
Wow.
So it's below the average of 9%, which like you said, there's a lot of people who don't hunt. But the Trask unit would be a draw tag. Well, you can still hunt fall general, I guess, but for the spring. So out of those almost 29,000 bear hunters, 2,642 bears were killed, a majority being boars, which is what a lot of people target. All right, here's a cool one. We're almost done with these. Cougar, 2022, statewide. What percentage of cougar hunters?
Because that's part of the sports pack too. So
correct.
And a lot of people who target.
How many
cougars.
hunters were on that?
Okay, there was 16,269 cougar hunters.
Personally, I'm gonna go high because I think the cat count the last couple of years been off. We've been getting a lot more sightings and stuff, so I'll say 30.
Wow, higher than the archery elk and the archery deer and the bear, higher than all the other tags.
Sometimes you got to go big.
All right.
And I'm going to go really low on it just because I've hunted a bunch in Oregon in my life and I still haven't yet to see a cougar. So I'll go with 5.
5? All right. Lower is 2%.
Oh,
yep.
That was
2%, which when I was doing this, that's what I guessed. I got it right on the
Did you?
Right on the money, so I was pretty proud. I've only seen one in the field and it was actually a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I've seen them driving, but you'd think with how high the population is, you'd see a lot more.
Oh, you would, but they're
why
sneaky animals.
Will let you walk right past, just like a blacktail. They'll let you walk within 10 feet of them.
And they really blend in so good.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're shorter to the ground, and especially out here in Western Oregon where I'm hunting, usually you can...
Yeah, and you see that face looking at you, just makes your heart sink, man.
Oh, yeah.
So there was only 345 cougars killed statewide in 2022.
Wow, that's it.
Which is nothing.
Wow.
That is, I feel like more probably get hit by cars. That is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
All right, we're almost done. Just 2 more categories. Rifle deer. This is the big one. You know, obviously, almost 100,000 hunters. 97,508 hunters. What percentage of those guys killed deer?
I will go with, I'll say 20% on that.
All right.
I think I'm going to go with 12.
12? Eric, what's going on, man?
Yeah,
27%.
Sucks around
27.
here.
So I'm surprised by 27. That's pretty good. I mean, I haven't looked at the national averages. I've heard like people mention that the national average for elk is 10%, and we were right around there. But for rifle deer, 27% out of 97,000 hunters.
Yeah.
That's 26,519 deer killed. That's a lot of deer.
Yeah.
That's a lot of deer.
It is a lot.
And the biggest class of bucks killed by the rifle hunters were forkies.
Yep. I can see that.
8,700.
Does that have spikes on there too?
It had spikes on there. But forkies, there were more forkies killed.
I can see.
Forkies are dumb.
I know a lot of people that won't shoot spikes, so
yeah, me too.
That makes sense.
I've passed up on a lot of spikes since they made it legal.
I have as well, yeah.
Yeah. And now that spike hunting is legal, I was surprised too. You'd think there'd be a lot of people out of those 97,000 just shoot a spike because it's there, but surprisingly, the second highest number was 3-point.
Yep.
3-point. But yeah, forkies were the highest by a pretty good margin.
I can see that.
Yep. All right, last category. Rifle elk. What do we got? We got 60,906 hunters.
That's going to be a higher number. 26%.
All right.
I'm going to go with 12.
19. So close to 20.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know how the national average for rifle elk is, but that's pretty good. Once again, all your draw tags, all your damage tags.
Yeah, I
hair
guess that's true.
tags,
There's a lot of
you know.
damage tags too.
It did break it down by bulls versus just elk killed in general. 11,476 elk killed, including hair tags, but 6,961 bulls.
Yeah.
The biggest class was spikes because there's a lot of spike-only rifle tags. 2,228 spikes killed out of that. So, yeah, that's a lot of spikes, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, I mean, across the whole state of Oregon, sure, but...
Fill a few freezers, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, cool. But that's the State of the Union.
Some interesting
2022
statistics, yeah.
Yeah, honestly. So now it's time to get into our interview with you, Ryan.
Perfect.
Ryan Sparks.
Tell us your origin story. How'd you get here? How'd you migrate the way you did, and kind of what are you up to now?
Yeah, you want long story, short story? Just kind of go through it.
Give it to
medium
us.
story.
Yeah, medium. So, I mean, starting off like you guys said, grew up Haines, Alaska, Southeast Alaska.
Which is where Eric's from.
Correct. Really got the best of both worlds because I grew up. We moved to Gerhardt on the coast. Yep. Pretty much did the summers in Alaska, fishing in the summers, and then back for school in the winter. And I mean, you have those amazing salmon runs up there in the summer that it's just, you can't beat it anywhere else in the world. So I got that. Then I got to come back and steelhead fish, fall Chinook fish,
and for the listener, whereabouts Gerhardt?
Yeah, so Gerhardt's up northwest Oregon, close to Astoria, and between Astoria and Seaside.
Yeah, nice.
Just on the northwest Oregon coast. So
sweet.
I got super lucky. Had a bunch of coastal rivers right there that were always filled with fish throughout different times of the year, and some really good hunting too. Awesome waterfowl, good elk and deer hunting. Just got real lucky growing up with that, and it's just always been in my blood and one of my biggest passions to go out there, and no matter what it is in the outdoors, just being outside and being able to go chase it. It's been one of those things that has been very near and dear to me, and I'm lucky that I've been able to stay in the industry and kind of work and find jobs within the industry to keep my passion and hobbies and work kind of all together. So I've been very lucky on that. I went to Oregon State. That's kind of where I started my bass fishing career, if that's what you want to call it. I went to a wrong classroom and this kid sitting next to me saw a sticker on my laptop and asked, "Hey, do you like fishing?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I grew up in Alaska." And he goes, "Oh, do you want to go to this bass club meeting tonight?" I'm like, "Bass club? I mean, what are you even talking about?" And I'm like, I had caught a few bass before that. My grandpa had a little asphalt pond, and we used to go out there and catch some crappie, bluegill, and bass. But it was mostly like worm and bobber and super simple type stuff. So
it was pretty secret weapon.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I went to that meeting with a buddy, and that's the first day I met Jay Ellis too. And
oh, cool.
I had no idea who he was. I wasn't following bass fishing. Like, I've watched it on TV, but I couldn't tell you what guy was. And everybody was so excited in the meeting. It was super cool that Jay took the time out and was able to come there, being with his history. I mean, this year he got inducted to the Fishing Hall of Fame. I mean,
yeah,
it's just incredible what he has done. And I remember that meeting. He gets up, comes talk to me and goes, "Hey, you want to go steelhead fishing next week in a drift boat?" And I was like, you know what? I've never been in a drift boat before. I'm like, yeah, that would be so awesome. And I really kind of got into steelhead fishing. It was one of those things that was still kind of difficult for me at the time, at least for putting up numbers, steelhead fishing. And I remember the first cast we put in up on the Silettes, I hooked a fish. It went nuts all over the place.
Wow.
The anti-reverse was broken on the spinning reel he gave me. It was the whole story was great. And
yeah.
Honestly, the end of it, I landed the fish. It was a 17-pound hatchery steelhead.
Wow.
And,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's where my relationship started with Jay. We caught like 5 or 6 fish as an early November trip. And
wow.
Yeah, he took my grade point average down a lot in college. We did a lot of fishing, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. That's what really got me into bass fishing. Then I fished. My first Oregon State tournament was the Civil War on Newburgh against the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was a fun one. It was a fall fishing one. It was I guess it was early spring when it had been.
Still cold?
Yeah, it was cold. But man, it was fun. It was the fall. It had to be the fall. And I remember going to that meeting. The guys were like, "Oh, you got to come fish this." And I'm looking at them like, "You guys, I have no idea what I'm doing." I had 2 ugly sticks at the time, a spinning rod and casting rod. And
hey, don't hate on the ugly stick, man. I love those things.
I grew up fishing, but I remember going out there, and I was with a guy named Mike Baskett, who's from the Salem area. Great fisherman, very, very involved in the bass fisheries. And I got on the boat. He goes, "You can't bring those rods on my boat." I'm like, "Really?"
Really?
I remember I threw a brush hog on a spinning rod and caught this largemouth out of this brush pile out there. And he goes, "Yeah, you're done using that." And that was my first day using G. Loomis rods. And
wow.
I remember after that day, I went and bought 2 of them, a casting and spinning rod of G. Loomis. And then I never looked back. And now, as you can see, my house is filled with G. Loomis rods.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just got absolutely addicted to it. And I was lucky enough at the time we had the Bassmaster and FLW circuit on the West Coast for college fishing, and that's where I got involved with that. And it was such a cool thing to do with the school. You're teamed up with Oregon State, and I ended up going fishing 5 national championships in college. So it was super cool. Jay helped us out a lot too, just from his knowledge throughout the whole nation, whether it was helping us find a boat over in South Carolina or wherever it was, and just some information, because I mean, we were traveling out there, never fished these places ever, and we're able to go out there, and absolutely, it was a blast. It
Imagine
was a lot
if
of
you
fun.
never would have walked into that wrong class.
You
do you ever think about
I think
that?
about it a lot, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just some things
what
were.
kind of coincidence is that? That's wild.
A lot of people don't know that Oregon State actually has one of the best bass fishing teams in the country.
They do, and they're very involved. I mean, when I was back there, we had maybe 10 or 12 kids, but now it's up in the 40s to 50s. I
Really?
know. Yeah.
Completely unsponsored as well.
Yeah, they don't get funded.
They don't have a boat. They don't have sponsors. They're paying for their own stuff. They're getting discounted rates on some of their tackle and rods, but for the most part, they're paying for their own fuel.
Yeah, come on, fishing industry. Let's give them some love.
Yeah. Come on.
Support our local guys.
Ryan and Jay Ellis both graduated from OSU, so I'd think that, we could get an eye to kind of try to pick that up a little bit. This isn't Texas or Louisiana. We don't have guys coming here for full rides on bass scholarships.
No. Yeah. And it's amazing what it is in the Southeast and
Yeah.
the kind of programs that are involved in that now.
Yeah.
I mean, even from when I was in college to now, it's insane what that sport has really taken off to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at all the names in the Elite Series events, and a lot of those guys grew up college fishing. A lot of those guys were the top names in the college circuit, and that's how they made it to the big leagues.
Yeah.
I always kind of refer back to the Joe Rogan thing, where if Joe Rogan tells you to, start a podcast, you should probably start a podcast. Well, Jay Ellis told me, you need to go pro and you need to be on the Elite Series.
Yeah, I know he's had that conversation with me, I'd say probably many times ever since college and fishing. And it was a decision that I've had multiple times and always wanted to really pursue it. And that's why I really got involved in the Oregon Bass Nation, just because you could qualify for regionals, qualify for nationals, and go on and fish a classic. And that was always like one of my dreams, is definitely going and fishing the classic. This year they're changing it up a little bit, so I'm going to have to find out some different avenues to try on that. But yeah, it's definitely something I've always wanted to pursue. It's always kind of in my back pocket. And
well, if Jay tells you to go pro, you should go pro.
So that is like a goal of yours?
It was. I mean, to be honest, this is so expensive, and the money involved, and just that leap of first being able to do it. I mean, coming out of college, it was pretty much out of the cards of I put most of my money into going to college and doing that. And then, like I said, I followed the fishing career and been very happy to where I'm at today. So it's just been one of those things, if you really want to just leap and jump and do that or not.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of takes you into what you've alluded to, that you get to work in an industry that, you're pretty happy with. You're working for Dawn Coffee. So tell us a little bit about that, what you do, what your title is. And
yeah, so Dawn Coffee, I've been working for them about 2 years now. I worked with the Laughlin trade shows before that, kind of being sales for 5 years in that, for the sportsman shows in the Northwest. And that's where I met these guys. And Dawn Coffee is a rep group for a lot of people that don't know that. So we rep a bunch of different products, both on the hunting and fishing side.
Sure.
The fishing side, we have Shimano, G Loomis, Power Pro, and Jackal. And then on the hunting side, our big ones like GSM Outdoors, followed by a lot of other clothing and outdoor shooting sports activities.
Cool.
Wow.
And that takes you pretty much in the Northwest region, right?
Yeah, correct. So I am Oregon and Idaho are my two areas. So I'm in Oregon, Idaho, traveling pretty much every day out of the week, seeing people, seeing dealers, getting all that done. But we also travel nationally to a lot of the different shows throughout the nation. So we're always on the road and going. But
Yeah.
Well, what's kind of the next step in your career for you?
As far as fishing goes, like I said, I took the job of being tournament director last year for the Oregon Bass Nation. So I'm kind of running that right now. We'll see what happens going further. I would like to get into some of the Wombass events, fish the U.S. Open, do some of that stuff on the West Coast and try to qualifying and get my name out there that way. But, every year's different. Oregon's got great trails between both the Bass Nation series, you got the TBF, and then you got Northwest Bass up in Washington. They run a great circuit, and then the ABA coming back to Oregon too. So there's just so many opportunities. And with my job, I get so busy I don't get to really pursue the circuits as much as I would like to, but it's fun jumping into a bunch of these different tournaments and just kind of pursuing it from there. We have such great fishermen in the Northwest. It really gets overlooked a lot, especially in our bass fisheries.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why we're doing what we're doing, man.
Yeah, I know. It's some tough love for the West Coast, and with Bass Nation pretty much pulling out of the whole West Coast this year and running all their nationals and regional qualifiers back. Pretty much everything's east of the Mississippi. It's unfortunate because I feel like that was one of our last big events out on the West Coast. So I take it day by day, just see different opportunities and kind of where stuff goes.
Cool.
You said you were a tournament director for something?
Yeah, tournament director for Oregon Bass Nation. So we basically have 4 qualifying events throughout the year in Oregon. Usually we try to do 2 different weekends. And then this year we're having a regional qualifier, and then it goes to the nationals. But usually we had the whole West Coast qualifier, which was fun. I mean, we all got to pick a week and go travel, and you'd see people. And it's cool because, like I said, I did the college stuff, so there's a lot of people I know that have stayed in that. So it's kind of like the big reunion out of the year, getting
fun,
to see them and see all of them. So
cool. That's cool. And so, like, day of, like, what are you doing at the tournament? Like, you're,
as far as tournament director goes for like this stuff, it's a lot of prep work. You're getting the scales ready, you're getting all the gear ready, and on the other side of it, you're getting your boat ready and everything, making sure everything's ready for you to fish the tournament. And then on the,
so you're fishing while you're in that role.
Yep, correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Conflict of interest? I'm just joking.
Yeah, I know, right? No, more of it just wears you out, and you don't fish as good as you probably should. But I love it. I love dealing with all the people in it too. We have a great group of guys in the state of Oregon, so it's just cool. It's really cool how close knit I think the whole fishing community is in Oregon as a whole, and it's some cool opportunities come out of that.
I like it, man. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what can be done to bring bass fishing back to the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a good question.
I don't even know if I have the correct answer.
Yeah.
Anything for that, really.
Like someone high up just needs to turn their eyes to the West Coast, right?
Yeah, and we almost had a Bass Elite Series on the Columbia this year. It was supposed to be out of Tri-Cities area up there.
That would have been awesome.
Unfortunately, that got moved, and then, or I guess that was the year before, and then our regional was supposed to be up there too for the Bass Nation side of it, and then that got moved to Lake Powell. So it's just trying to get some more involvement just in the West Coast, I feel like.
So is that what drives the move, is not enough people? Or is it
not necessarily.
Factors?
I think it's just more money, and I hate to say it, but it's for them. It's a lot of travels. It's a lot of distance. If you look at the road map, coming all the way up to Tri-Cities for them, it's just way out of the way. It costs a lot of money when they can go drive to Lake Powell from the East Coast on a straight road and be there in half the amount of time.
Really?
So,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wow. It's such an interesting world to me to think about, like the whole bass fishing, pro bass, and how it's so regional. You'd think.
Oh, it is.
And
it's nuts.
Would be cool, but
have you
so
been down
regional.
South and seen any of the stuff down there? Oh, it is insane. I mean, just for our college national tournaments, I mean, we'd fill up. I mean, it's insane how many people would just show up to watch it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Jay told a story when he was on about the caravan that would follow him
around.
Yeah.
150 boats.
Oh, yeah.
Which I can't even, I've never even seen a lake with 150 boats on it. Like, I'm blown away by that.
Oh, yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Ryan.
Yeah.
What tournaments are you looking forward to? Do you have anything that you're going to be fishing next year?
Next year, I'll finish off this year. We have our regional event, the 21st, 22nd on Hood River out of in October for smallmouth, and that's one of my favorite fisheries, especially in the fall. They're just chomping and biting super good. That's the one I'm looking forward to mostly for the end of this year.
Sweet.
But always like the Moses Lake one, the Nixon's Invitational. I know that's in May. That's one of my favorite ones. It fished so good last year. It was absolutely crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard Moses Lake is just off the chain. It's a crazy fishery.
Where's that at?
Washington. Moses Lake, Washington.
Is it in the east part of Washington or the west part?
It's east.
East? Okay.
Yeah, over by like potholes.
Okay.
It's
pothole.
incredible fishery. And we hit it right this year. I mean, we had, I wish I could remember right. I know we had almost 21 pounds for both days, and we ended up in ninth. So that'll tell you how good the fishing was.
And that's a good size bag.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it was just incredible. I remember going up the scale having 21 pounds, and two guys in front of us had like 24 and 23, and we're like, uh-oh.
Wow.
It's going to be one of those tournaments. But yeah, for next year, what I'm really excited for, especially with the Bass Nation side, our 10-mile opens February 17th. It's the Frostbite Open.
Yep.
Everybody, it's kind of like the kickoff for the year. Everybody's super, super excited to get out there and fish, and it draws so many boats to it. Usually get
come out of hibernation
50 plus
and
boats.
hit the water.
Yeah. So
that's with 10 Mile?
Yeah, that's down at 10 Mile.
Okay.
But 10 Mile's fished so good this year. It's been incredible. So really looking forward to that next year. And then our regular circuit tournaments, we'll have the Bass Nation Series up April 20th and April 21st out of Boardman up on the Columbia.
Sweet.
And then May 18th and 19th back down at 10 Mile, which that is just incredible.
Yeah.
That's such a good fishery.
Yeah, and it's cool because that one's right on the coast.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, a lot of times I don't equate bass fishing with the coast, but we have Devil's Lake picking up a ton, which we talked about last episode. 10 Mile is known as a great bass lake. You know, there's some good bass fishing around.
Oh, it is. Yeah. A lot of that coastal stuff, and especially down by 10 Mile. I mean, you have Silk Coos, Taconich, Wohink, all those really good lakes that are kind of down in that area.
Well, and striper fishing's getting good down there too.
Yeah, super good.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've never caught a striper before.
I've caught a couple in Oregon, but
yeah, I haven't been that lucky yet.
Yeah, and then even moving away from the coast, Hagg Lake, you know, for a long time has had the state record smallie, which it's a hard lake to figure out. It's hard to get on fish at that lake, but then people who do good. You know, there's a lot of good bass fishing around here.
Oh yeah,
I grew up fishing the Yamhill River in McMinnville because I grew up there every day after school as a kid, and biggest bass I ever caught was just down there, you know, on the little creek.
Yeah.
With my buddy, we skipped an assembly during school and went fishing, and you know, it's just there's a lot of great bass fishing around here in Oregon.
Yeah, no, very much so.
So we wanted to ask you for some tips. You know, we all want success in the field, on the water. That's what we're here for. It's what we obviously, you know, the experience of just being out there is great, but the more success, the better, right? So we want to know if you could give some tips for us and for our listeners, how to catch bass in September.
Yeah, September, it can still be tough or it can be really good. It's kind of one of those fall transition months where you're coming from summer, going to fall. A lot of it will depend on water temp and just water as general, whether it's raining, stuff is moving up, fish are starting to bite more. When that temperature starts to drop, I mean, those fish start to eat and build up for wintertime, which it's awesome. You can still get some good topwater fishing in, but I would say, I mean, for the smallmouth side, a lot of them are still going to be feeding on some smaller bait. So any of your craws like tubes, small jigs, and then in your swim bait side, some smaller like Kitech, rhythm wave type smaller baits for that. And then of course drop shot. I'm a big drop shot guy, and Ned rigs, kind of the whole arsenal plays. They're kind of feeding wide open
because it's transitional. They're getting ready for
they're
winter.
Feeding wide open, and like I said, you can still catch them on top water sometimes. I've caught them into October on top water.
So what part of the water are you seeing the most success though?
Yeah, so a lot of it they're kind of moving up with smallmouth. You're fishing a lot like you're fishing for salmon or trout, like trying to hit the eddies, ripples, and you have to look at that on the big scale, like fishing the Columbia and the different rock shelves, because they're ambushing prey. They're getting up there and ambushing prey, especially in the current. A lot of that fishing's done from basically 0 feet of water down to about 20 feet that time of year. It can be really good, and I love to kind of focus around that 15-foot line usually out there. And then for largemouth, a lot of it's flipping wood this time of year. Your grasses kind of might start dying off once it gets colder. You might not get the best topwater bites, but throwing reaction bait, spinner bait, square bills, fishing a lot of that wood, and you're fishing anywhere from, I'd say, 3 to about 10 feet a lot for those largemouth, especially on some of our coastal lakes. But flipping's pretty good still. You can throw jigs, Cincos.
And when you say 10 feet, you're talking about the bait is in 10 feet of water. You're not talking about the water being 10 feet deep.
Well, I'm talking about it being 10 feet deep. Sorry.
Okay, so you're on the bottom.
Yeah, on the bottom.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so what about rivers versus lakes? Are you fishing different?
Yeah, so I'll be fishing a little bit differently. The rivers, it just depends. It depends how cold it will get. I mean, you're kind of done with all your runoff of snow, so they might stay a little warmer faster, but the lakes will have a different transition period where it'll kind of turn over. I guess you'd be fishing, that's a tough one. The river, you're mostly fishing for smallmouth, I guess. So I'd kind of stick with your smallmouth techniques. Either the Willamette, Columbia are kind of the two big ones. I know you got like John Day and Umpqua too, but those will start slowing down faster just because they'll get a little bit colder.
Yeah.
The lakes, I guess you'll be fishing that. Like I said, just mostly largemouth. I mean, we have a few smallmouth opportunities like Hagg, but a lot of that will be your largemouth fishing.
I'm curious, is there like a weather pattern that you wait for and that you get excited for? Like, let's say there's a cold snap or a rainy week as we transition that you're like, okay, I got to hit the water on this first sunny day.
And what's cool is like last year it was tough because it stayed hot all the way into the fall. And then,
yeah, I
then
remember
it got
deer hunting in
cold
October.
fast.
And it was like 80.
And we never really had that fall transition. So I'm looking at a lot at the low temps and kind of trying to figure out where it's going to average out through the day to where it will start that cooling trend. And we're not quite there yet, but I mean, if you wake up in the morning early, like I was down fishing the Sluice a lot this last weekend, and you're there morning and you're putting on a full jacket.
Yeah,
and
it's
your
getting
bibs
cold
and,
at night.
It's that fall. It's kind of in the air. So I'm going to start looking at it, but I'm looking for that water temp to drop really more than actual conditions.
Because the fish don't care that much about the air, right?
No.
It's the water.
No. And I would love to see it down kind of lower 60s. I mean, it's still in the high 70s. So once it gets down kind of lower 60s into the 50s, a lot of those bigger fish start biting, and it kind of just activates them, and that's when
they just want to eat everything
fully
they can.
goes off. Oh yeah, it can be awesome. Some of my best days all year will be in the fall.
Really?
Yeah. So
cool.
it's hard because I love hunting that side of it too. So trying to juggle the time on that, I always said for Oregon the month of October, I wish it went 6 months because there's just so much to do, and it's right here now.
You got duck season opening up. You got bass. You got salmon. You got deer season. Yeah.
And all your upland stuff opens. You got pheasant, quail, dove. It's wide open, and it's so hard to juggle all the stuff in that month, and sometimes you can go do a cast and blast.
Hey, it gets harder when you get married.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
I love it. So considering that the water temperature is really what matters, when we get that first frost in October, does that change your fishing strategies all, or is it just all about water temperature?
It's all about water temperature. I mean, you can definitely shock the fish if it jumps way down from high to real cold, and that's what happened last year. I mean, we had all that early snow and that super cold weather that just shocked them, and they went to winter mode of just locking up. So yeah, I just stress just watching the water temp, and it's funny, people do you get excited for it? I'm like, I'm going fishing no matter what. I'm just hoping that it's going to be down that cold. So I'll find them one way or the other. It's just how good is that day really going to be?
So right now we're still in summer water temp.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you're doing to get on fish?
Yeah, so I just think of it being tough fishing. So kind of get more finessey, kind of go down in size on all your baits, almost fishing like you'd think you'd be fishing in the winter, super slow. Sometimes you'll get good morning and afternoon bites. So that's kind of what I'd really be focusing on. You get those cooler temps where they might be real good feeding at low light conditions.
Got it.
So I'd really, really focus on the mornings and afternoons right now. But for midday, kind of going a little bit deeper, a little bit slower, especially for next couple weeks, I'd say, until we kind of get into October and get those lower temps.
Are you looking for shadows when it's sunny out and
stuff?
stuff?
That's more like a midday thing. So a lot of those fish will kind of move up and position on shadows and shade later in the day. I'd say closer to 11, noon, and then into the afternoon. Kind of your hottest parts of the day, but they should be moving around actively feeding.
Yeah.
In the mornings, that's when I suggest throw reaction baits, kind of cover the water, whether it be a square bill, any type of crankbait, really, jerk bait, chatterbait, spinner bait, swim jig, just those kind of moving reaction bait, which allows you to cover water too. You can cover that water faster and usually find fish kind of in congregation and kind of figure out where they're at, or figure out a pattern on kind of what they're wanting, whether it's on wood, grass, whatever it may be for that day.
What I'm hearing is when it's hot out and it's bright and sunny and the water's still warm from summer, you're not really fishing open areas that are the sun's blasting. You'll move to shadowy areas.
Yeah. A lot of times, for largemouth, they'll get on wood and some type of cover, or hang in the shaded areas. Smallmouth's a little different. Usually they'll go a little bit deeper.
To get away
rock
from
piles
the sun.
and stuff. Yeah. So they just won't be up. Mornings a lot of times will be up feeding in that super shallow water, and then they'll kind of transition a little bit deeper in the afternoon. So Hagg Lake a couple weeks ago, going out fishing after that Cast for Kids event, all those fish were pretty much in 15 to 25 feet of water out there, for example. Yeah. And that's a mixture of both largemouth and smallmouth there, just because you don't have that cover right now that's up on the banks.
I mean, this is a good chance to ask about Hagg Lake. Have you found much success there?
I have. It's one of those lakes that's real stingy for me. Like I'll go out and have an awesome day, and then I could go out the next day and struggle real bad.
I feel that with the trout fishing out there, but I've never had a great bass fishing day.
I guess it goes all around then.
Yeah.
But it's one of those lakes that gets pressured so hard. So you kind of got to think outside the box and try to do something that not everybody else is doing. I know spring can be really good when the water's up and they'll get tight to the bank and you can kind of cover water and do that. This time of year, they're kind of any type of structure you can find, fish that. Like, try to find structure because that's what they're going to be holding on this time of year.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a river fisher through and through. That's like what I end up fishing 99% of the time. So going to a lake, it's hard to kind of switch strategies.
Yep.
What are I know I already kind of asked this, but what are some of the things you're doing different in a lake?
A lake, like just breaking down a lake, going to a new lake. What I'm looking for first, if I can get a good map or kind of see the contour lines of the lake, usually I'll start with the points of a lake. Try to figure out what kind of points it has. A lot of fish will hold on those, and it'll give you a good judgment of the lake. What's in it, what type of grass, hard bottom, what's happening with that lake. So I'll start usually on the points. If I'm not catching fish, like I'll run a couple points, not catching them there, I'll start working into, like they call them the secondary points or secondary banks, kind of getting back in some of those arms, fingers, bays, whatever that lake has to it. And kind of just keep working your way, trying stuff until maybe you find the ticket to the lake. And I mean, some days, I'll be honest, sometimes this is not there and you won't find that, but kind of just breaking it down. I mean, you have a big body of water, so focus small. And then if that's not working, focus smaller on that. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it may be something where the west side of the lake's not working, go to the east side. Maybe snake your way back into one of the arms and just keep trying different stuff, and just don't get stuck on one thing.
Well, what's the deepest you're fishing when the water's hot?
Deepest, usually about 25.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably about the deepest I'll fish.
And it gets colder, you move it up?
I mean, more of your optimal temp. It's hard in the lakes because there's a turnover, so depending where that fish is going to be at certain times of the year. But once it gets colder from those higher temps, those fish kind of start moving up and feeding a lot more. They get more aggressive. Yep. So, I would start moving kind of up near the shore once that starts happening.
Yeah. I like it. Sweet. Well, that's a lot of great tips and information, man. You just kind of put it all out on the line there.
I mean, not too
the only
much.
thing you didn't give us is colors, so I feel like that's good.
Awesome.
Thank you. So I just realized that we kind of skipped an important thing. That we always like to ask people, what's your favorite hunting or fishing experience?
And that's a tough one. I'll probably just give you the top two. I caught a 10-pound largemouth 2 years ago in the state of Oregon, and that was always like my bucket list is catching a 10-pound. And it didn't matter in the Northwest. Like I just wanted that 10-pounder, and doing that in the Northwest was huge with like a northern strain fish. And I remember hooking it. I won't say where it was, but I remember hooking it and getting it up to the boat, and I didn't know it was that big until I saw it go across the water.
Yeah.
And that moment of just sheer panic, I would probably call it, more than excitement of just, I need that fish. It needs to be in the boat. And once that fish got in the net and got on the floor of the boat, like I just broke down. Like it was just like, oh, that is
like you've been working
fish.
For
like,
that.
Yeah, that was just like, and it was a shocker. Like it was something you weren't really expecting where I was. And
that's cool.
Yeah. I remember getting it in the live well and just shaking so bad. I'm like, I got to wait for a minute to put it on a scale. Like I didn't know if it was 10 pounds. I go, I know it's the biggest fish I've ever caught, but I didn't know if it was 10 pounds. And I remember when it was like 10.2. And
oh, wow.
I remember after it was on the scale, I just shaking my head in just pure disbelief. And honestly, another top moment was catching my first northern pike with my dad up in Canada. There's a lake, cool. Desi Ash Lake up near Whitehorse, and that was always my top fish. Like I always wanted to catch one. Don't know why. It was a cool colored mean fish, and growing up, and I remember seeing it, not being able to catch it, and then it kind of swam off, and we chased it, and I threw this fluke over it, and it just came up and inhaled it. And I still remember setting the hook, everything clear as day, and getting it in the boat and just like screaming, like almost at the top of my lungs. I was so excited over that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just some of those moments like that. I mean, they'll stick with you forever.
Yeah,
And that's why we do it. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome, dude. Sweet. So an important part of our show, something that we always try to bring and ask is, what are your spiritual motivations behind your life in the outdoors? Like, I'm sitting in this room right now. There's taxidermy all around me. You have a fishing shelf, pictures of your girlfriend on the wall with all these animals, you know, like hunting and fishing is a part of your life and who you are. And I just really love to hear your perspective on how the outdoors has impacted not only who you are, but what's your spiritual connection to that life.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of people it's hard to understand, or some people just don't get it. But like for me growing up, one, it was a business in my family, just being on the commercial fishing side of stuff. But then it was also just one of those things where I get pure joy, and everybody that was in Alaska pretty much hunted or fished. So it was kind of a way of life thing, but it was also that connection that you had with people and friends, and like just talking about catching some different catches in your life that were just, it was so special just being with those people at that time and having those connections, having those stories, being able to laugh, look back and see how important whether you're talking fishing or hunting, it doesn't really matter in my opinion. It's just that special opportunity that you're spending in the outdoors and just kind of that back and forth with nature. It's something that's very special to me, and I talk about a lot on a lot of my fishing trips I go with people. I was just on one where we were laughing in a boat. Fishing wasn't that good, but it was just being there with your friends and just the pure joy that it gave us, just being there together. And it didn't matter if we even caught a fish, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was just that connection.
So I'm curious, it sounds like your experiences in the outdoors has been an important part of bringing you together with people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of your relationships are based on that. I'm curious if your life in the outdoors has any kind of connection with your relationship with God.
Yeah, it has. I mean, I grew up in a very Christian family, went to church all the time, and it was something that, and it's very important to me, especially with my grandparents and everything growing up. And it was definitely, I would say, a spiritual experience, just being in the outdoors and being able to do what really I loved and was able to share that.
Thinking of your identity and who you are as a hunter and a fisherman, imagine what would it be like if that was taken away and that wasn't a part of who you are? Yeah,
and that's a tough question. Honestly, like I love sports and that side of stuff, but like fishing and hunting is my passion. Is everything I do all the time. Like I've said before, it's work and play, and it's everything to me. So I could never imagine not being able to do it, either on the hunting or fishing side of it. Like that would be. Yeah. Like even hearing you talk about how you've crafted your life around it, even talking about your career being revolving around the outdoorsmanship lifestyle, you know, it's just amazing how much of an impact this lifestyle has on us. Oh yeah. And impacts who we are and how we think and what we value, you know? Well, it's cool too. And it's like our out too, you know, if you're having a bad day, you can go out there and be fishing. And yeah, like I said, a lot of people just get too wrapped up into having to catch or kill something. That's the only negative part I see. It's more of actually enjoying the whole experience from beginning to end, whether it's getting stuff ready to go do it or coming back home on a trip. Just people get too wrapped up in the catch and kill part of it is what I think. So what is it then? If it's not the catch and the kill, that's not the primary. Is it the primary reason you're out there? What's the actual primary reason that you are out there if it's not the catch and the kill? I mean, for me, it's just enjoying it. I think it's a simple question. Just enjoying it, and it's all aspects of it, whether it's just out running the boat around on a day where the sun's just coming up, or even if it's raining, pouring down rain, just enjoying your day and being able to do what you love. I mean, for all of us passionate outdoorsmen, once we get that feeling, you can't shake it. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. And I feel like there's a huge part of it too that goes deeper than just me as an individual, but how I am as a human being and longing for that connection to the outdoors and the experience of, you know, it's not just because I'm gathering food
that I'm enjoying doing it. You know, it's like I'm living out my purpose as a human being on the planet of Earth and engaging with my life in the outdoors. You know?
Yeah, no, I'd definitely say it. And I mean, it's always the added bonus of I love to eat deer meat. I love to eat elk meat. I love salmon, but I mean, some days it just doesn't happen. And just being out there and being able to do it, like, I love it. The excitement that you get from setting that hook to when you're getting that fish in, there's just, there's nothing greater, I don't think.
Well, and it's such a small moment, though, within the experience of a fishing trip.
Oh yeah.
How long is setting a hook? You know,
I know,
it's like
exactly.
A second,
I know.
A split set, you feel the bite for a second, and then you set the hook, and then you reel the fish in. And if it's really cool, it takes a long time. But most of the time, you know, you just reel the fish right in.
Yeah.
And then if that
You
was
go
all
back
that it
and do
was
it again.
about,
Oh, yeah.
then you wouldn't enjoy most of it. But
it's just that, there's all those different moments that wrap up into one throughout the day that for me, like even going out and catching the crappie and doing that stuff and panfish and some of the stuff that I grew up doing, it's just so cool. And I get so excited just even doing that stuff that I hope I never lose it. Honestly, I hope it's always something that keeps me excited and keeps me going. And
yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for your perspective on that.
Of course.
Appreciate it. And that's all that we had for today, Eric.
Yeah, if people wanted to find you or follow you on social media or YouTube, whatever it is, how can we do that?
So I got, I think my Instagram is Ryan Sparks 12, I believe, on that. It's bad. I don't even remember most of that stuff. But if you want to follow our work stuff too, it's DCC West on both YouTube, Instagram. That's where we put together a lot of our videos that we work with a lot of guys in the Northwest. And you can go there and see all of our awesome videos that we get to do and kind of experience life through us of what it is in the Northwest to hunt and fish. We bring a bunch of different dealers out and people throughout the Northwest on these hunting and fishing trips, and it's cool because we get to share them there and all of our experiences just like we're doing today. So
I love it. Anything else you want to point people to?
Not really. If you want to join Bass Nation, reach out that way too. It's a great involvement. It's just cool because it's like I said, such a good community that you can join to be a non-boater in that. You don't have to be a boater. And that's how I met one of my best friends actually was being a non-boater in that. Now I'm tournament partners with him and we hunt and fish all the time. That Montana buck was with him.
Oh,
and
sweet.
That was all just from one of those little moments of being a non-boater and something like that. So
show up at the wrong class.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're
I know. I've been very blessed.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, and thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So it's been a fun conversation, and hope anyone who's listening gathered something from it.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next episode.
All right.